Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 10 o'clock. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000 or WhatsApp voice note me on the same number. And I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, December the 20th. Here's what's coming up. Even by Labour's low standards, the Campsfield Detention Centre adds up to a spectacular waste of taxpayers' money. 6 years to refurbish a building to detain 160 failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals ahead of their deportation. Cost of refurbishment, 6 years. An eye-watering, wait for it, 70 million pounds, which works out at a staggering £475,000 per bed. It gets worse. Campsfield is virtually empty. Last month in December, the Oxfordshire establishment housed a whole, 9 migrants. Today, the joint looks deserted. Nothing to see here, according to the Home Office. It's all part of the government's brilliant plan as Keir's crew crack down on a crisis that so far they've made a massive mess of. 70 million quid for an empty building. Isn't that special? 0344 499 1000. In other news, in his crazed quest for Greenland, Donald Trump finally notices that Britain's Chagos Islands giveaway is an act of supreme stupidity by the increasingly absurd Keir Starmer, who today proved the point by approving China's sinister super embassy right in the heart of the city. Here, the Chinese will be in pole position to spy on the financial district's international deals and make a mountain of money for Beijing. Furious critics say that Keir's cowardly kowtowing to China represents a grave threat to national security. Why doesn't our dear leader seem to care? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, more migrant madness as a dangerous Kenyan rapist is allowed to stay because the Home Office took too long getting round to his deportation. In 1988, he was jailed, sentenced to 19 years for kidnapping and raping his terrified victim. He should have been kicked out the moment he was released. Instead, it took until 2016 for our bungling bureaucrats to get round to it. And when they finally ordered him to leave, he appealed and won the right to remain thanks to an immigration judge who naturally ruled that the inordinate delays meant that our hero can stay for good. A kidnapper and a rapist. 19 years. He can stay forever because our bureaucrats took too long getting round to his case. It fell through the cracks. Can you believe this? Isn't that special? 0344 499 1000. Plus, Starmer looks set to stage his 14th U-turn by bowing to pressure from his illiberal backbenchers who demand a total Australia-style social media ban for under 16s. Shouldn't that be a decision for parents and not our interfering mother government? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, Ben Habib on the day's big stories. The truth about Posh and Bex and their entertaining feud with their rebel son Brooklyn, who has poured a bucket all over Brand Beckham. I'm Team Brooklyn. What about you? What do you mean you couldn't care less? This is important, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. And finally, author and podcaster Tim Samuels on the sidelining of white men by the £10 billion DEI juggernaut. How so-called diversity, equality and inclusion has created a generation of terrified males, wrecked many careers and pushed disaffected, rejected men towards misogyny. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. Now, we're going to go straight over. Stephen barrister and commentator, will be with me for the first hour. He's going to play a kind of ghostly role for a while, listening into this decision or this discussion, because I've got our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott, back on tonight, unusually, but because she's got another one of her trademark massive scoops. This is an extraordinary story, Isabel. We're talking about the Campsfield detention centre, which is for those rare asylum seekers who actually fail their cases, so they're due for deportation. Also, serious foreign criminals. So it's a detention centre in Oxfordshire for 160 rejects, if you like, who are set for deportation. Now, that took 6 years to refurbish this building, and the cost of that was, as I said in my monologue, an eye-watering £70 million. How on earth did they manage to spend that much on refurbishing a building? 6 years, £70 million, 160 beds. As I said also in my monologue, if you went there in December, woohoo, there were a whole 9 migrants in this 160 bed centre, and if you go there now, it's clearly pretty much deserted. The Home Office say no, nothing to see here, no story here. It's all part of the government's brilliant plan, its brilliant crackdown finally to get a grip on the migrant crisis. I'll read you the Home Office statement a little later, only fair to give them their right of reply, but basically your story, Isabel, tell us all about it. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, this is yet another case of absolutely scandalous misuse of public money and just lifting the lid on the complete lie that is the government's so-called deportation strategy. They claim that they're ramping up deportations, that they're serious about getting rid of foreign criminals and those that have failed to win the right to remain in our country, a pretty small group, as you said anyway, Kev. But then when you actually look at what's really going on, you find that there is a supermax detention facility, all built with the state-of-the-art bells and whistles at a cost of £70 million to the taxpayer, which has basically no illegal immigrants or failed asylum seekers or foreign nationals in it. How do I know this? Well, it so happens to be pretty near where I live in the Cotswolds, so I've been keeping an eye on this detention facility periodically. When I'm not overseas, I drive past, have a bit of a sniff around, and I noticed that it reopened, not with a great flourish, but it reopened in December. And when it reopened, it had the grand total of 9 detainees in it. So if you do a bit of maths, that works out at a simply ludicrous number of millions of pounds per detainee. And then fast forward 6 weeks, we're now mid-January. You might have thought that given how many illegal immigrants have arrived in the country since then, that detention centre would be full to the max. But oh no, the Home Office won't tell us how many people are in it, but I can tell you that there's hardly any, because I've hung around, or rather my researcher has hung around outside, and there's precious little going on. We found a couple of bored security guards fiddling around on their phones, not really doing much. The Home Office, off the record, is kind of hinting that there might be up to 50 people in there. That's only less than a third of its already pathetic capacity. And you know what they're saying? They're saying that they can't bring too many failed asylum seekers into the facility at once because it would destabilise the building.
Or you mean if they actually used the cells and the beds that they've created, that they've built, that would mean that the whole centre couldn't function. That makes a lot of sense. Now, if you do the maths, even if these beds were filled, you know, that this was filled to capacity, this detention centre, it would mean that the government has taken taxpayers' money and spent a staggering £437,500 for every single bed. £70 million, £437,500 per bed, most of which now are completely empty. This is a classic snapshot of this government and its complete dysfunctional approach to the migrant crisis. They haven't got a clue what they're doing, have they?
I mean, for that money, you could buy each, I don't want to give them any ideas here, but you could, in that area, you could buy each of them a 2 or 3 bedroom house. I mean, this is, yeah, perish the thought, because that will probably be what they do next.
Yes.
I mean, to put this in context, it's only 1.5 of your classic boatload of migrants that detention centre can hold. You know, roughly speaking, the boats that are coming across the channel now carry somewhere between 90 and 110 or 120 passengers. So that whole Supermax facility can only really hold less than 2 full migrant boatloads. It's completely pathetic.
The Home Office, of course, informing us off the record that they do not run or they do not deliver a running commentary on this sort of thing. When government officials say, oh, we don't give a running commentary on this, it means they're embarrassed every single time. Same for MPs, same for politicians. We don't give a running commentary on this. It means they don't want to talk about it. Bear with me, Isabel, because I better read the official Home Office statement. This is from a spokesman who told Talk the following. The Home Secretary has announced the most sweeping reforms to tackle illegal migration in modern times. This will make Britain a less attractive destination for illegal migrants, which will make it easier to remove and deport them. The government is scaling up removals of people with no right to be here, with nearly 50,000 already removed. Campsfield Immigration Removal Centre is the first step in a major expansion of secure detention facilities, delivering on our pledge to secure our borders and protect the public. Well, if it's, OK, so that's what the government is saying, that's what the Home Office is saying. If it is the first step in a major expansion of secure detention facilities, I've just got this kind of proposal that they might want to take on board. How about using it?
I mean, look, if they were proud of their record, the one thing they would do is give a running commentary. That's what you do when you're proud of what you're achieving.
Yeah.
Update everybody. And today we've deported another 50, and tomorrow we're going to deport another 80. You know, you would give a running commentary. The people of Great Britain are crying out for a running commentary on the number of illegal immigrants and foreign criminals being deported, because we sure as hell get a running commentary, thanks to the government's own statistics, on the number that arrive. So how about publishing every day, every week, the number that are deported? But they wouldn't want to do that, would they? Because it would be so embarrassing. The truth is, they are only forcibly deporting a handful of people. They quote these big figures, but those figures are actually, in many cases, voluntary departures that the government didn't even know about until these people were gone. So let's not beat around the bush here. This is a total joke and a total set of failings, as usual, by this failing Home Secretary and her administration.
Yeah, as for her crackdown, by the way, of course, just to remind everybody, we spend a total of around between £3 and £4 billion on the asylum system, our broken asylum system, and £6 million a day on hotel bills for migrants looking to stay. And quietly, by the way, talking of statistics that the government no doubt doesn't want to provide a running commentary on, listen to this. Quietly, they're coming across the channel again. So here's how effective Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's crackdown is being. Certainly, this government is offering no deterrence, quite clearly. So, last Wednesday, after a long period of inactivity on the channel, right, because of the weather, mainly. The weather is the only thing that stops migrants coming across. Nothing that Shabana Mahmood or Keir Starmer are doing. Don't believe that for a second. So last Wednesday, 171, all of a sudden, 171 migrants across the channel in 3 boats. On Saturday, Thursday and Friday, a couple of naught days. Saturday, 317 on 5 boats. Sunday, 138 on 2 boats. And yesterday, 275 on 4 boats. So don't talk to me, not you, but generally speaking, don't talk to me about the Home Secretary's tough, hard as nails crackdown. It isn't working. And we continue to pour money, mountains of taxpayers' cash into this money pit, and then we learn, apart from the fact it's costing us £3 or £4 billion a year, 6 million a day on hotel bills, then we learn they're spending £70 million on a building with 160 beds in it. I don't know how they managed to do that. That is an achievement in themselves. Listen, Isabel, thank you so much for another fantastic exclusive. I'll let you get off to bed now. That's our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Now, Waiting in the Wings, let's quickly get his thoughts on this. Waiting in the Wings is our usual Tuesday friend, or my usual Tuesday friend, barrister and commentator Stephen Barrett. Welcome, Stephen. Thanks for patiently waiting in the wings there. Your thoughts on what we've just revealed? 70 million quid.
70 million pounds to house and deal with 50 people. And of course, they won't all be boat migrants, because naturally every boat migrant requires at least 1 valet, 2 char ladies and a footman. So presumably they'll all be in the statistics there somewhere. I mean, this is just a joke. It reeks of a different age, to be honest, Kev. Look, when they started this pathetic refurbishment, they started it in 2018 and they spent 70 million pounds. That's because the country is badly run and can't do anything. That's why it takes that long to actually do it. But it's a bygone era, a day when the boat migrants would be perhaps a couple of hundred a year, and they wouldn't dare house them in army barracks. Do you remember all the lefty human rights lawyers who go straight off to court if they tried to house the illegal migrant men the way that we treat our armed forces and our serving officers who die and fight to protect us? That they'd get hysterical if we dared to put them in an army camp or an RAF camp or anything else. So of course they have to have a purpose-built luxury home, and the ambition of it is absolutely ridiculous. It talks to a scale that is nowhere near the problem, and we all know this. We all know that our country is broken. It can't build anything. It can't do anything. It hemorrhages money like nobody's business, and it has to stop. And ultimately, that's where we've got to get to, Kev.
I totally agree, Stephen. And the madness of this expenditure. This isn't building a new building, constructing a fabulous new building for £70 million over 6 years. This is a refurbishment. This is sort of repairing and painting and doing up a dilapidated building. That's not going to be cheap. But why does a refurbishment take 6 years? And why did it cost £70 million? That is, to my mind, potentially a shocking misuse of taxpayers' money. We need to find out more about this place, but quite a story, folks. Let me know what you think about that. £70 million of your money has been spent doing up a building for 160 asylums, failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals. In December, there are only 9 in there. And if you go past there now, it seems pretty deserted, but the Home Office are sort of indicating there may be as many as 50 migrants in there now. Why aren't there 160? Why would you spend 6 years and 70 million quid refurbishing a building for 160 migrants, and 2 months into its opening, you've only got 50 people in there? Last month, 9 people in there. Get 160 in. For God's sake, at least try to pretend it's value for money. So let me know what you think about that, folks. 0344 499 1000. Stephen, you and I will discuss some of world affairs when we come back, particularly the Chinese embassy in the Chagos Islands. That's still to come. Stick around, folks.
have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, so we're going to be doing something with Greenland either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with barrister and commentator Stephen Barrett. Stephen, let's talk about, well, first of all, today the Prime Minister gave his approval to the mega Chinese embassy, which will be near the Tower of London, in the heart of Britain's financial district. What was interesting about this is it finally seemed to awaken President Trump to the madness of Britain's Chagos Islands giveaway. He's been, ever since that ludicrous saga began to unfold of us handing these very strategic islands, which are used by America and other countries to fly very strategic missions across the Middle East and the Far East. It's right in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it was ours. And ever since Starmer and his ludicrous acolytes, that cretin Richard Hermer, the Attorney General, human rights lawyer, and that shady character Jonathan Powell, all anti-colonialists, anti-imperialists. We must give the Chagos Islands back to its rightful owners. Mauritius, which has never owned them. Mauritius, which is a very good friend of China. Absolute madness. Well, it's taken this approval of the Chinese embassy to wake up President Trump to the insanity of what Britain's doing to the Chagos Islands, giving it to China's best friend. Why we're doing that baffles everybody. The reason is what I just told you. It is that, you know, Starmer, Hermer, Powell, they are old-fashioned socialist anti-imperialists. They see our control of the Chagos Islands to be a throwback to British colonialism. That's the only reason they're giving it away, even though giving it away is a tremendous threat to Western security. It's woken the president up to the insanity of that, because I don't think he was across it until today. But let's talk about the Chinese embassy first. And if you bear with me, Stephen, this is Kemi Badenoch on today's events.
The super embassy is not in British national interests. It is ludicrous to compare a Chinese embassy to an American embassy. China has been spying on our country. We've seen cyber attacks, lots of threats, theft of intellectual property. I don't think we should be comparing China to the US. One of those countries is a strategic military ally. We have a close relationship with the US. We have a big trading relationship with China, but that doesn't mean that we should allow a super embassy that will enable lots of nefarious activities that would be a threat to national security.
Well, that's Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, of course. In fairness, let's get Labour's side of the story. This is Labour Cabinet Minister Dan Jarvis on the Chinese embassy.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically, recognising the complexity of the world as it is and challenging them where we need to. Because for our security, our economy and our climate, China matters. And to be clear, this is not a question of balancing economic and security considerations. We don't trade off security for economic access.
Confidently and pragmatically, I would say, in fact, Keir Starmer and his government are dealing with China like a poodle. They've sort of bent over and done exactly what Beijing wants, exactly what Xi Jinping wants, because they're too terrified. Clearly, Xi Jinping and his gang will have said, if you don't let us have this embassy, the trade implications for Britain will be enormous. He's terrified them. It probably would have caused some economic problems, but perhaps we should have stayed strong, because this embassy, heart of the financial district. It will be able to file cables straight down to very important cables that are carrying the world's top financial deals to all over the globe. Everybody knows they'll be able to drill in, spy on the information, make mountains of money for Beijing. And God knows what else they'll be able to do. There's all these rooms underneath which they think will be used as cells. Not unusual for foreign embassies to actually keep prisoners in their consulates. So that'll happen as well. Well, frankly, I think what we should have said to China is, look, we don't want to fall out with you, and you're quite right, you're a major power. You should have a mega embassy. We've got a lovely site for you in Cambridgeshire. Something like that, don't you think?
Yes, it's perfectly acceptable, and we should not kowtow to people. I'd also like to point out to listeners and viewers that 2,000 years ago, some very enterprising and lovely humans hand-carved a Buddha into a cliff in Afghanistan, which was incredibly beautiful. And then 2,000 years later, some humans who had fallen into complete madness of a perverse religion simply used TNT to blow it up. For no reason at all other than satisfying their mad ideology and to no benefit of humankind in any way. That's basically what Labour are now. And Dan Jarvis, who used to be a vaguely rational or sane person, literally said that we have to do all this for our climate. I mean, I'm sorry, that is mad talk. You have to point out, and I think, Kev, it is to do partly with the death of Christianity or the fact that these people have moved away from it, that they just grasp some other religion and they've gone for the weather gods are angry at me. Unless I do stupid things, the weather gods might get cross. The winds might blow in a furious way. Ooh, I best cower under my bed. This Labour government is not rational, and it is a threat to national security. That is now, I think, clear to Donald Trump. I would have liked to seen Kemi Badenoch promise to rescind the Chinese embassy. That's what I didn't see. And I think, again, they sort of baby step towards responsible government, but they're still very much thinking in the way everybody, in their defense, everybody thought like this for 30 years. It's just led us into the madness of where we are, and we clearly can't think this way anymore. We cannot think it is rational to give away the Chagos Islands. I sent a tweet, and I stand by this. Giving away the Chagos Islands is the equivalent of the government sending a bunch of lorries to Tate Britain or the National Portrait Gallery tomorrow and then driving out to Kent and throwing the contents into the sea. There is no reason to do it, and it is seriously destructive to our country.
Perfect analogy.
Insane.
Good analogy. Good analogy. Now, let's talk about the Chagos. Obviously, our relations with our special relationship ally America are not very good at the moment because Donald Trump seems to want Greenland. My solution to the Greenland problem is easy. It's easy. What you say to Donald Trump is this. So we stand up to him. We say, Donald, you can't have Greenland. You can't buy it. But you're the most powerful country on earth. So if you want it, by all means invade it. Go on, invade it. Send your army in. Send your air force over. Carpet bomb Greenland. Then you can have it. And what would he do? He would back down, wouldn't he?
He'd back down from that. I mean, my answer is let the Greenlanders decide. What I've seen in the hypocrisy from the left, and they would never have said this about Northern Ireland or indeed Southern Ireland. They would never said that it was a decision for the Irish and the British. They wouldn't have said that. They would have said it was a decision for the Irish. And actually, that is the position in international law, and I stand by that. It's for the Chagos Islanders to decide whether or not they're free and they want to stay with us, which Labour are ignoring. And it's for Greenland, not Denmark, to decide whether or not Greenland wants to be free. Everybody who says Greenland and Denmark is wrong on the law and probably a bit weird. I mean, that is, why would Denmark get to decide? It's their country, their territory. Okay, it's only partially independent, but if it wasn't. We had a referendum on Scottish independence. I think we all paid attention to and were there. Some of us stayed up all night to watch the result. I didn't get a vote, did I? And that's, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't oppose that. That's perfectly fine. But Denmark does not get a vote on where Greenland goes. And from the US point of view, if Denmark can't defend Greenland, then Denmark is a useless ally.
Yeah, and then
we've all become useless to them.
Well, I agree with that. So you got Keir Starmer going pompously, joining all the other European leaders, a sovereign Greenland territory, as you say quite right, for the Greenlanders to decide. You cannot have this sovereign territory. Sovereign. He's not very worried about the sovereign territory of the Chagos Islands, is he? He's not worried about the right of the Chagossians to decide on the future of their land. Doesn't give a damn about that, just handing that over to Greenland. As I say, Donald Trump, if this Chinese embassy saga has anything positive about it, it is that it has finally woken Donald Trump up to the insanity of our Chagos Islands giveaway. He tweeted on Truth Social, his own social media site today, shockingly, our brilliant, he put that in quotes, shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so for no reason whatsoever. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity and is another very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Denmark and its European allies have to do the right thing. So he's conflating the two issues. I don't think there's any kind of comparison to be made, apart from the fact that on the one hand, Keir Starmer said it's disgraceful, the sovereignty of the Greenlanders, it's for their right, we cannot just take their land, it's their land, the people of that land. The Chagossians, oh, sod them, give it away, give it to Mauritius. There is a complete contradiction in Starmer's approach to this. And frankly, in their human rights lawyer guise, Keir Starmer and Richard Hermer, the Attorney General, are utter cretins, because this is just about their North London 1970s anti-colonial worldview. It's only right that the imperialist remnants of the British Empire be handed back to their real people. Well, maybe in some cases that's right, but not the Chagos Islands, because the Chagos Islands has never belonged to Mauritius. And also, by the way...
And they don't want to go, Kev. They don't want to go. The Chagos Islanders don't want to go. They want to stay. They want to stay with us. This is ridiculous 1970s politics by a bunch of, nearing 60-year-olds who never grew up.
Exactly right.
And you see that in Mauritius's alleged lawyer, is Philippe Sands, and he's a man in his 60s who likes to wear T-shirts in public. I mean, I just have nothing else contemptuous to say about him. Richard Hermer is a bad lawyer, because he was trying to argue that there is a legal case for us giving away the Chagos Islands. That is wrong as law. Law is one of those absolutes. We're like maths, okay? Yeah. 2 + 2 doesn't occasionally equal 5 just because you have feelings, vibes, and got excited in the 70s. 2 + 2 = 4. The Chagos Islands, we have authority over them. They are our sovereign territory. The International Court of Justice has no right to make any ruling on them, made no ruling on them, cannot make any ruling on them, and cannot take away our land. So they are giving away our land on a false premise. And frankly, Kev, I'm starting to think these people are going to end up being prosecuted.
The other good thing about it is now that Trump has woken up to it, I mean, this is not a done deal, and I think this may well have really thrown a big spoke into the wheel. So with a bit of luck, Trump's sudden eruption of objection may put a spanner in the works of this deal, and let's hope it does. Let's give Labour their right of reply and what their case is about the Chagos Islands. This is that guy, Darren Jones. He's Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. He's the guy who thinks that the vast majority of migrants coming across the Channel are babies, women and children. So that's the calibre of this guy. Here he is on the Chagos Islands deal.
I don't think Britain should be embarrassed or humiliated at all, quite frankly. Diego Garcia, which is a small island that was part of the British Empire, having its sovereignty challenged by the Mauritian government. We've secured that island as a military base for the next 100 years because it is an important military base for the UK and for our NATO allies, including the United States. That was why the deal was welcomed by President Trump and the American administration, because the deal not only secured the island for the next century, but gave us very, very important security guarantees about the functioning of the island and the seas near it.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. And of course, the key phrase in that asinine statement by him, in which he says, oh, you know, Trump loves this deal. Well, clearly, he says it's an act of great stupidity. So if that's supporting the deal, I'd hate to see him opposing it. But the key...
Well, he's making a legal statement there, Kev. He's saying that the UK has secured control of those islands for at least 100 years after we give them away to Mauritius.
30 billion quid is going to cost us.
That is not true, Kev. It is not true as law. And the minute that the Trump administration wakes up to that, they're going to react. I mean, he can go on television and he can say things that are not true as law. And I can, you know, my usual position, Kev. He's either an idiot or he's a liar, and I don't care which one he is. He's wrong. Okay, he's wrong.
Do you know
you are either right or wrong on law, and he is wrong.
You know the key phrase in Darren, in that appearance on TV by Darren Jones? It was the Chagos Islands, which was a part of the British Empire, which of course Darren and Richard Hermer and Keir Starmer want to smash to pieces to get rid of every single remnant because they're opposed to colonialism, because
it's
mentally...
absurd, Kev. I mean, I'm here in Buckinghamshire. We were part of the British Empire.
Well...
And we as a country need to be proud of how we deal with territories, how we let people have independence, and we need to ask questions about places like Denmark that basically force Greenland to remain as colonies. The French are pretty bad with their ex-colonies too, and so are the Portuguese. Let's ask questions about these former colonial powers and not beat ourselves up when we actually behave in a really decent way. We even let Scotland have a referendum if it wanted to go. I mean, that's...
Yeah, but
when Ireland left, we gave them special legal powers and voting rights and free travel. And we defend them militarily.
There is no sense whatsoever to us giving away the Chagos Islands unless you're some kind of throwback to the 1970s and you think British imperialism is still an issue. Absolutely absurd. These people are not fit to run the country. They're dangerous. They are. This deal, if we give away the Chagos, hopefully Donald Trump will now smash that deal to pieces. But if we give it away, we have created a serious threat to Western security. Unbelievable. Now, when we come back, talking of unbelievable, I've got a doozy of a migrant case for you. A man who wasn't deported for extraordinary reasons. He should have been. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with barrister and commentator Stephen Barrett. Stephen, let's run through this one quickly, but because we've got another story to do after this, so we've got to get a move on. But this is the extraordinary case of Kenyan migrant Mohammed Mubin Aga Aslam, who was allowed to stay in Britain despite kidnapping and raping his terrified victim, for which in 1988 he was sentenced to 19 years in jail. So in 1988, this Kenyan guy kidnapped and raped a woman and got 19 years. After his release, it should have been automatic deportation. But the reason that he wasn't automatically deported was because the Home Office the bureaucratic bungle, the case just slipped through the cracks. And he just walked out and nothing happened. It's as simple as that. They just didn't get round to dealing with it. Extraordinary. When the Home Office finally woke up to this bureaucratic bungle, Asylum was ordered out of the country in 2016. So what is that, 10 years ago? He appealed, of course, to an immigration court on the basis that the decision had taken too long. Which naturally immigration judge John Hanson agreed with, and in 2024, last year, this vicious sex fiend was allowed to remain in Britain for good because his case slipped through the cracks, wasn't dealt with, wasn't addressed. When the Home Office found, oh blimey, we should have deported him, he goes to a immigration tribunal, says they've taken too long. A judge says absolutely right, you're welcome to stay for the rest of your days, Mr. Kidnapper and rapist. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And what happened is that he went to prison under a Margaret Thatcher government and he came out under Tony Blair. And let's be absolutely honest, that government didn't want to deport anyone, did it? And then the idea that the courts aren't complicit, not those are immigration courts. I don't actually consider them myself to be genuine courts. And I think we're going to have to be much more savvy on what we consider a court, and much more honest that Tony Blair instituted a bunch of things that actually we shouldn't inherently respect, and we very much might want to get rid of. But those courts, then they hear an argument. Let's just follow the logic through, Kev. I'm coming to this court in 2016, and I'm saying that it's taken too long for this to be dealt with. And the court says, fine, I'll take 8 years to deal with it.
Yeah. And
that's not a court. That is a joke. It's a political institution designed to keep people here because they believe there are people in our country, sadly in positions of power, who believe that there is nothing better than more migrants, and nothing will make the country better than more migrants, despite all evidence to the contrary. Despite to all of us, as diverse as we are, we will not be. Our lives will not be improved by infinite migrants. Maths is real.
Yeah, and immigration judge John Hanson, of course, you all know this, Stephen, as a barrister, he could, of course, have ruled that, yes, there's been a bureaucratic mistake here. This has taken way too long. But your offence is so serious, serious enough to get you 19 years in jail, kidnapping and raping your terrified victim. That offence is so serious that despite this bureaucratic delay, you are hereby deported. But of course, he didn't decide that. He didn't
decide that, Kev, because he's got no incentive to decide that. And if he wants promotion inside the judicial system, he has to demonstrate his commitment to DEI, and that means he has absolutely no interest in deciding that, and nobody cares about the victim. Behind this is a real woman who's a victim.
Yeah, and these immigration judges, not all of them, I don't know all of them, obviously, but time and time and time again, we come up against these absurd decisions by Guardian-reading immigration tribunal judges. Do you remember the judge? I forget his name, but he was the son. You'll be astonished to hear of a Guardian journalist, and he decided that when some Gaza family turned up, that they should be allowed to stay here forever, and in fact that all Gazans, all Palestinians should be treated like Ukrainians, Ukrainian refugees fleeing war, and should automatically be allowed in. A decision that had to be reversed very, very quickly, otherwise it could have caused utter chaos. Time and time again, paedophiles come out of jail, they should be automatically deported. Judges, tribunal, immigration judges, tribunals decide time and time again because of their human rights, their right to a family life, the fact they could be persecuted back in their homeland, they're allowed to stay. They don't. They pretend that the law commands that they make. My hands are tied. It's not true. It's utterly not true. They could throw the pedos out. They could certainly have thrown this Kenyan sex fiend out, but they decide not to because that's their political inclination. Let the migrants stay.
The entire thing is a sham, Kev.
Yeah.
It's just a sham.
Yeah.
And these are political decisions. They should be made by a minister. And then if Shabana Mahmood had decided that this guy could stay, we'd all be clamouring for her to be sacked and she'd be gone by the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, and instead, this theatre of making it, these decisions being made by pretend judges who are effectively just wielding political power, it allows the entire circus to keep rolling on. These people don't seem to understand that public anger will rise in opposition to all this, and the reaction is going to be very, very difficult. And when hearing the words I've just said, I'm now probably ostracized from my former profession. But when the backlash comes, you'll need me, because I'll be the only one arguing that actually some of the judges are all right.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with that. But certainly, I've never come across an immigration tribunal judge who's made a sensible decision. I mean, they just don't do it. They're left-wingers. And, of course, the Attorney General, who ultimately presides over them, Richard Herman, will approve of this. You know,
Kev, this is great because this just shows that racism is fundamentally stupid. Human beings are universally the same, and they all make decisions based upon their self-interest, not upon some sort of identity bracket. And all those immigration judges are self-interested in letting people stay. It's to their benefit, it's to their profit.
It's to their benefit.
If they do anything else, they'll get criticised.
It's to their benefit, but it's not just sort of pragmatism on their part. They're just left-wingers. In order to become a tribunal judge, an immigration tribunal judge, you obviously have to turn up for the interview carrying a copy of The Guardian. Otherwise, you don't get the job. Simple as that. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about what looks like Keir Starmer's 14th U-turn, having said that he wouldn't ban social media for the under-16s like they did in Australia. It looks like he's going to ban it after all. He's going to change his mind, bowing to pressure from his illiberal backbenchers who want all social media banned for children and indeed under 16-year-olds. It's horribly illiberal, if you ask me. Not the government's. We don't want mother government. That's a decision for parents. That's my view. We'll talk about that next.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I say the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Not so long ago, a couple of months ago, in a rare feat of liberalism, our normally illiberal Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said that he disagreed with the idea that Australia has pursued of banning all under 16-year-olds from using social media. He said that was too much, and I agree with him. Of course I agree with him. Anyway, he's now gearing up for his 14th major U-turn, because it looks as if he's going to backtrack on his promise not to ban social media for under 16s in Britain, under pressure, bowing to pressure from his very illiberal backbenchers who want to bring in laws to ban us from doing virtually everything. Now, this is, I think, a disgrace. I think this is a disgrace. This is a free country. And whether or not kids under 16 years old use social media is a decision for their parents, their mothers, their fathers, their, maybe single parent parents. It's a decision for their parents. I don't want mother government basically deciding that it is its job to raise children. It isn't. This is government overreach, nanny state, illiberal. We don't want to go down Australia's cul-de-sac, do we? This is a disgrace.
Well, it also won't work, Kev. But let's be very clear about our Prime Minister. His 14th U-turn needs to be not giving away the Chagos Islands. His 15th U-turn needs to be not abolishing jury trials. His 16th U-turn needs to be the Chinese super embassy. We do not need him to ban something else. And I was very disappointed to see the Conservatives calling for this. Absolute madness. More state, more statist control, more socialism, more control of everyone's lives. Will only be free when we're all in the panopticon. I mean, this is just insane.
Absolutely.
We need somebody to argue for freedom and liberty again, because as I often say, we are being infantilized. We are being turned into children, because banning social media won't actually stop a savvy 15-year-old who wants to go on social media, obviously.
No, it won't practically it won't work, but it's the principle. I don't want to live in a country that...
But it will mean, Kev, it will mean for us, for adults, constant age checks.
Yeah.
That's what it'll mean. Constant interference with us. Prove that you're 18.
Yeah,
we still do this with alcohol laws.
You know what will happen, Stephen, don't you? You know what will happen is, you're right, there'll be constant age checks. All the adults, like all the alleged adults like you and I, we won't be able to work out how to get round them, but the kids all will. No, I mean, exactly. The reality is this will not work, but it's so depressing that our government backs the principle of ban, and yet another massive ban. This ban is an attack on freedom of choice, freedom of the choice of parents whether or not to ban their kids from social media. If parents don't want to ban their kids from social media, fine. If they do, that's their decision. It should not be the province of government. This isn't what the government should be doing. They're interfering in the raising of children, parents raising children, and whether or not kids can use TikTok, Instagram and all that should be down to their mums and dads and not bloody Downing Street. And you're so right. Kemi Badenoch leading the charge on this. These modern Tories have forgotten what conservatism was supposed to be about. One of the guiding backbones of conservatism was personal liberty, freedom.
Yeah, I mean, literally, watching Kemi Badenoch do it was like watching her brag that she'd finally persuaded Darth Vader to stop being cuddly and nice.
Well, she shouldn't be doing this. That's not conservative. That's not Tory. Tories should stand for freedom of the individual and freedom of parents to make decisions about their children. It's not the government's job to raise children as if they're mother government and those kids actually belong to them. This is government overreach, classic socialist nanny statism, and it's a disgrace.
But we've watched the creep of authoritarianism for 30 years, Kev. When I was a young man, and I want your listeners and viewers to know that did actually happen once, even if it is terribly implausible now. You couldn't get served alcohol if people thought you were 17. Then it became Challenge 21, then Challenge 25. Now they've just instituted, all these delivery companies have instituted what I think, by the way, is an illegal contract term, that everyone must prove their age on delivery. Now, you already own the thing by the time the delivery guy brings it to you. So if he doesn't give you your stuff because he's not impressed that you haven't shown him your ID, he's actually stealing your things. And that's, I mean, from a certain point of view, that's a very serious offense, but it's certainly not lawful. But this is, it encapsulates how childishly we are all treated now.
Yeah.
You know, I, as a 46-year-old man, have to prove that I'm not 17. Now, and what sane society requires a 46-year-old, frankly, a little bit overweight and not in any way first flush of youth man to prove that he's not 17? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And we got this from the actor James Dreyfus, who is, I'll pardon James's blushes, but a little bit older than me, who again got this from an Amazon driver, and it's just absurd. It has to stop. We have to go back to treating adults like adults. We won't be a high trust society if the state doesn't trust a word we say.
Yeah, Amazon delivery men checking your age. Do me a favour. That's absolutely absurd. Stephen, it's always a pleasure to have you on board. What a fantastic hour that was. Thank you so much. Stephen Barrett there, barrister and commentator. Very entertaining hour. I'm sure you agree. It's going to get better after the 8 o'clock news, because I'm going to be joined by Ben Habib, the leader of Advance UK. We're going to run through a few of the big stories of the day. I'm going to ask whether or not the Labour government is actually being controlled by Muslims in this country. They seem to make no decisions without checking what our Islamic community will think about it first, so they can keep the Muslim vote. And also, our friend Jennifer Mele, the nurse from last night, who was in the studio, she won her case. After 2 years of madness, she can go back to work. We'll probably deal with that story first. So much to come with Ben Habib next. So you better stick around and stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, last week, I sort of released Ben Habib, the excellent Ben Habib, from a kind of weird period of cancellation. He was cancelled and nobody could quite work, well, I couldn't work out why. I said, why can't we have Ben on? And they said, of course you can have Ben on. So we got him back on last week. So he's up and running again. and somehow or other I think I've created a monster because everybody wants him now. But I did seal a deal with him last week to come on every Tuesday at 8 o'clock for half an hour to run through some of the big stories, because his views, his worldview is always valuable. So even though I've turned him into a monster, a warm welcome to the leader of Advanced UK, Ben Habib. Hi, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. I'm your monster.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, he might be a monster, but he's my monster.
Yeah.
But it's good to have you on board, Ben. Now, just to go off piste a little bit, but I know it's a topic that you'll have views on. Jennifer Melley is the NHS nurse who, for 2 years, she was in here last night. I've interviewed her several times over the years. She was in here again last night, ahead of her disciplinary hearing today. Now, you'll know the story. 2 years ago, or just a little less than 2 years ago, she works at a big hospital called St Helier Hospital in South London, massive hospital. A prisoner, male prisoner, was brought in for treatment to his intimate area, put it that way. And of course, he was 6 foot tall. He's a paedophile, he's a convicted paedophile, and he said, I identify as a woman. I require you, Ms. Melley, Nurse Melley, to refer to me by my preferred pronouns of she and her. I require you to address me as a woman. And Jennifer's a devout Christian, and she said, I'm really sorry, but my Christian beliefs prevent me from addressing you as a woman. But it's been reported that she said, I'll only call you Mr. That's not true. What she said, in the spirit of reasonableness, she said, look, what name would you like me to use? I'll call you that. How about that? But I'm not going to call you she and her. At which point he lunged at her, tried to attack her physically, and called her the N-word 3 times. As a result of that, Jennifer was suspended, you know, for breaking trans rules, for investigation into whether or not she'd broken rules about how trans patients are treated in the NHS. After months of being suspended, in frustration, she talked to the Mail on Sunday about her story, and then was sort of suspended on pain of death for breaking the confidentiality clause of her employment contract, apparently. Anyway, she's waiting for 2 years. She was in here last night, a bag of nerves, because today at the disciplinary hearing, she faced the very real possibility of the sack and being struck off as a nurse because she refused to address a 6 foot tall racist paedophile male as she or her. And also because she spoke to the press about it. So she was very, very nervous last night. Anyway, the good news is, at last, common sense prevailed. She won the case, so there'll be no further action, and she'll be allowed back to work to pursue her career. She's been a dedicated nurse for 12 years, hasn't been able to work for 2 years because of this madness. Now, before I get your thoughts on it, our reporter, our ace journalist, Samara Gill, used to be the producer of this programme. She caught up with Jennifer after her victory and had a quick word with her. Watch this.
There are great spirits over here, Jennifer. You have been exonerated. How are you feeling?
You know what? I just busted into tears and shaking. I said, thank you, Lord. This is such an incredible moment of my life. And seeing that we have victory. And now we urge West Streeting now to put in the policies immediately.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What do you have to say to Labour? I mean, they weren't very supportive to you throughout this entire sort of journey. What do you have to say now? At least you've triumphed and you've won. And I've got the Darlington nurses, some of them behind me as well, who were exonerated last week.
Yes, I just want to say that it's important for us to recognize that as a nation, we need to, you know, to be an example, and in leadership, especially for the members of parliament. You're there to protect and safeguard our nation. And for this, should be a learning curve for all of us.
So, a happy ending, Ben. But what she was a victim of, she was pointing out to me last night, look, Is my Christian beliefs, also as a medical professional. You know, this was an operation, how can I put this, on his manhood. She saw the absurdity of addressing this person as a woman. You know, she and her, you know, when they're operating on his meat and two veggies, if I can put it that way. You know, she saw the absurdity of that, and also her religious beliefs. And then she pointed out last night that what about the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court has made a ruling on biological sex. Surely, if I choose not to refer to a biological male as a woman, that's my right under law. So we've got a happy ending, but your thoughts on the absurdity, the woke insanity of the ordeal that the NHS has put that poor woman through for 2 years?
I mean, you say we've got a happy ending, but it's a bit like losing something that you should have never have lost, finding it and then feeling happy because you found it. It's a false kind of happiness, because all she's being reacquainted with is where she should never have been abandoned. She should never have gone through the 2-year ordeal
of course not.
That she was forced to go through. And that is the punishment she has suffered. And as elated as she is, she's only elated because that nightmare is behind her, a nightmare she should never have had to go through. And this is a testimony. It's almost end of civilization kind of stuff, Kevin, isn't it? Where you get a woman who's delighted for not being charged or not being...
Well, she would have lost her job. She could have been struck off. So she's, you know, to her, she's very dedicated. This is she can go back to work. She can pursue the career that she loves. She's a dedicated nurse, you know. So that is the happy ending. But you're absolutely right, Ben. The fact that she's had to go through this for 2 years is a testament to the peak woke insanity of the NHS. It's got to stop behaving like this.
It's got to stop. And when I say it's end of civilization stuff, it's when people can't think straight, when they're incapable of making logical steps from one, you know, argument to the next, identifying what is a man and a woman, even though we've got a Supreme Court ruling informing us what it is, which, by the way, I also think is absurd, that we had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to tell us what a man and a woman is.
It took 5 years, Ben, it took 5 years for them to reach that decision. After 5 years, the most brilliant legal minds in the country came up with this. What we've concluded is if you're born, you know, like a bloke, then you're a bloke. Thanks.
I mean, wow. Wow. Amazing. And so anyway, on the specific case of Jennifer, I'm delighted that she has found her way back to normality, and that should give her some comfort. But she should never have had to go. Gone through the last 2 years.
Absolute madness. Can we move on? I want to get your thoughts on a couple of the big stories today. First of all, what's your opinion of Keir Starmer's decision to give the green light to the Chinese mega embassy just across the river from where I'm sitting now, right by the Tower of London, in the heart of London's financial district, the city, whereby critics say it will easily drill through the floor into all the big cables that carry the biggest financial deals of the day every day. The Chinese embassy will be in a position to spy on that, no doubt make money from that. And people say that by allowing this mega embassy from basically our enemy China to establish itself right in the middle of our financial district, right in the heartbeat of Britain, Keir Starmer has compromised national security.
And on the same day as compromising national security by allowing that embassy to go ahead, we had Rachel Reeves saying how we must continue to trade with China because of its growing market. Actually, what's happened, Kevin, over the last 25, 30 years is that our preparedness to effectively deal and trade with a country that had human rights standards way below our own, manufacturing standards way below our own, labor standards below our own. Not that I agree with net zero, but a complete disregard for net zero while we were emasculating ourselves on that altar. What we've done is shift industry from this country to China and shift wealth from this country to China. And you talked about me being a monster. The monster that has been created over the last 25 or 30 years is a absolutely economically and militarily powerful China that has ambitions now to absolutely take control of the international stage. We created this China by our negligence over the last 25 to 30 years. Anyone who is remotely acquainted with the way that this has unfolded should know, particularly also in light of what was revealed last year, Kevin, you'll remember, Chinese spies close to Prince Andrew and so on. Is he Prince Andrew anymore? I can't remember. He's probably lost his title. Andrew. And the Chinese are empowered. They are expansive. This is not the China of a couple of 100 years ago that was internal, introverted and inward looking. This is a China that is outward looking, hungry for resources, hungry for markets, and is taking control. And for Rachel Reeves to come out today and say, we must take advantage of China's markets, what is she smoking? It is China that is taking advantage of us. And their embassy, which we do not understand, which they have refused to give us full plans on, as you say, is being built in the heart of the city, and they will have the ability to spy on us. And having the ability to spy on us means they will be spying on us. It's an absolute absurdity to think that, oh, they're going to be good guys. We can bring them in and they'll behave themselves. Absolutely not. The geopolitics of the world has changed. We have empowered China. It is now a significant economic and military power. It is expansive, and we better learn our lessons pretty damn quick, because unless we do, we will end up we will be a sacrificial lamb to the Chinese expansion.
Exactly right. And what plans, or some secret plans, have been revealed, which tend to indicate, and this is not unusual for foreign embassies here in Britain, tend to indicate that there may be some prison cells down in the basement of this mega embassy. It will be in a position to drill down into this. There's apparently one massive cable that carries most of the big financial deals. It will enable it to drill down and get into that, and probably spy on information that may make Beijing one hell of a mountain of money.
Sure.
Now, when it's probably not a coincidence that on the day they give the green light to the Chinese mega embassy, the Chancellor announces we must do more trade with China, because that,
that's what I was saying.
That, in my view, is the backdrop to this. It's clear Xi Jinping has said, if you don't give us approval for this embassy, the effect on Britain's ability to trade with China will be immense. You will lose a lot of money. They have they've kowtowed to China over money and trade.
What we should be doing, the trade's not to our advantage. The trade is to our material disadvantage. They're a cheap producer of goods, using cheap fossil fuels, cheap labor, abusing the human rights of the labor that they employ, and then deindustrializing the UK so that they can sell us products that we should be making in our own country. What we ought to be doing, Kevin, is deregulating our markets, ditching net zero, reindustrializing the United Kingdom, bringing those jobs back from China to this country, not enriching an expansionist, effectively anti-British superpower that we've created. We should be rejecting that. Rachel Reeves is not thinking straight. Keir Starmer is not thinking straight. And I don't know if we're going to talk about this in a second, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that we've also handed Chagos.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to talk about. Now, the good news about that is it isn't quite a done deal yet. Now, the only positive about allowing China to build this massive mega embassy is that decision seems to have awoken the sleeping giant of Donald Trump. It's finally dawned on him that the Chagos Islands deal is an act of utter insanity, of deranged madness.
Absolutely right.
And he's posted this on Truth Social, his own social media site today. Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt that China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness. He goes on to say, the UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity and is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. You know, let's not go into Greenland now, but it is, well, actually, yes, let's. Do you know what's interesting? you know what's interesting about Starmer? Starmer, you know, standing up to Trump, ostensibly saying, you know, sovereignty of Greenland, the sovereign land of the Greenland people, the Greenlanders must decide on their own future, no one else, sovereignty. So the Chagos Islands, the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, couldn't give a damn. The Chagosians, oh, who cares about them? See what I mean? Yeah. There's a sort of dichotomy between what he says about Greenland and what he says about the Chagos Islands.
Completely. And Mauritius is a Chinese ally. Yes. They're very, very close, reliant on Chinese aid. China will now have, you know, complete view on what's going on in Diego Garcia. Can I just say, before we move on from Chagos, very quickly, hats off to the Great British Political Action Committee and Claire Bullivant. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what they've been doing, but the letter that went to President Trump, which alerted him to the absolute idiocy of what was going on with Chagos, was drafted and motivated by this lady, Claire Bullivant, and her Political Action Committee. And actually, she's been fighting a legal action against the treaty that Starmer wants to bring in. And eventually, thank goodness, Trump has woken up to it. And we must not let Chagos go. And the other thing I just want to quickly say while we're on Chagos, unknown to, I think, the vast majority of people, while Chagos was unfolding, we've given up Gibraltar to the European Union. Now, Gibraltar is only 2.3 square miles, but it has been strategically important, indeed critical, for the protection of the United Kingdom ever since 1713, when we took it over from Spain in a treaty. And we've given that up. We've got to get that back too, Kevin. We are giving up these absolutely critical British territory.
Exactly.
And to our enemies. The EU is no friend of the United Kingdom. They're not as bad as China. But, you know, giving up Chagos, giving up Gibraltar, and then rushing to the aid of Greenland, when actually the Danish, and I'm going to express an opinion on this, when the Danish haven't properly protected Greenland. They have not given it the military protection it needs as the Arctic becomes more and more valuable to Chinese interests and Russian interests. We need to wake up quickly in Europe and recognize the geopolitics of the last 30 years, this global free trade at the expense of one country's own security has ended. And we've got to become much more muscular in protecting our national interests. And Trump is looking at us and thinking, my goodness, what the hell are you guys up to? You may be NATO allies, but you're not funding NATO. You're not developing your military. You've let it all go to pot. You don't understand how to enforce your borders. You're giving up sovereign territory. You guys are a basket case. And I'm with Trump on that. We've got to rediscover what it means to protect our country.
I mean, I'm not... usually I'm a big supporter of Trump. I'm not keen on his approach to the Greenland issue. What I would say to Trump is, you can't have it, you can't buy it, but if you want it, why don't you invade it? You know, go on.
But Kevin, what Denmark should be doing is making sure it has the military capability and might on Greenland to protect Greenland from foreign forces. You know, malign foreign forces like the Russians and the Chinese. Trump doesn't have any faith. I don't have any faith in Denmark protecting it. I've got no faith in European military. We are the biggest military in Europe, the United Kingdom, and we're a shadow of our former self. The next biggest military, I can't tell you for sure whether it's Poland or Germany, because Poland was growing.
Poland's pretty big. Poland's big.
Poland's pretty big, and that they may be actually the most reliable now in Europe. But Germany, which used to be the second fiddle to the United Kingdom in military sense, is an absolute joke. Its tanks don't work, its ships don't work, its planes are hopeless. And so how the hell can Trump take any confidence from its NATO allies if its NATO allies haven't done what's required to protect themselves?
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, you know, the Greenland issue is complicated, but I don't think that Trump, usually I support Trump, but I don't think he can just be given Greenland.
No, he can't be.
Nor can he buy it. But you're all right. We're not doing anything about that.
We're not doing our job.
We're not very good at strategic territories, but it does look as if the good thing about Chagos is the deal is not sealed. It isn't finalised. So if Trump really does get involved, maybe common sense can prevail, and we don't give that very strategic strip of land in the middle of the Indian Ocean to China's best friend Mauritius, because that is
Can I say one last thing on that?
Very quickly, Ben, because we've got to move on to another topic.
The geopolitical situation is becoming more and more fraught. This is no time to be giving up foreign territory. Absolutely no time, particularly militarily important territory.
Absolutely right. Let's go to break. When we come back, I want to talk about the Muslim vote and Labour's approach to that. That next. Stay tuned.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I say the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with the leader of the Advanced UK Party, Ben Habib. Ben, I want to run through, I want to talk about the Muslim vote and the fact, the impression, shall we say, that the cravenly courting the Muslim vote seems to dictate almost every decision that this government makes. So obsessed is it with the 4 million Muslims, the Islamic community of Britain, so obsessed with it is it with their voting power that it seeks never to offend Muslims. So what have we had? This week it refuses to ban first cousin marriages, even though first cousin marriage is a practice of Muslims. They marry their own first cousins. First cousin marriages, 15% of the babies that come out of first cousin marriages are deformed. 15%. And yet this government won't ban first cousin marriages because the Muslim community like them. Cruel, inordinately cruel halal slaughter, whereby, contrary to the law of this land, animals are not stunned before their throats are slit. All other animals, all other forms of slaughter require stunning first, but pure halal, to be fair, kosher meat as well, it just slits the animal's throats and they die in great pain and agony. The government will not ban halal slaughter. They won't ban the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist organisation, definitely. Even though, by the way, about 5 countries, Muslim countries in the Middle East have banned them: Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, I believe. Austria is the only European country not to ban the Muslim Brotherhood. They won't ban the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They sucking up to the Islamic community led to the UK disastrously recognising Palestine. Also, I would suggest a fear of losing the Muslim vote may have dictated the Prime Minister's total lack of action as the now disgraced West Midlands Police Chief Craig Guilford kowtowed to Muslim extremists by banning Jewish football fans from Birmingham. Starmer at first, quite rightly, condemned that decision, and then he went completely quiet on the issue and let it happen. Also, was the Muslim vote the reason Keir and his cabinet crew were so curiously muted over the Iranian uprising, and so on and so forth? This craven pursuit of the courting of the Muslim vote seems to dictate so many decisions by this government, so many policies, and it is getting frightening, to be honest with you.
It is frightening, and what a brilliant, perhaps it's not brilliant, but what a revealing set of examples you gave.
I'll take brilliant, Ben. I'll take brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not brilliant in the sense that it's awful, isn't it? The examples reveal such a sickness at the heart of British politics that we're prepared to take the knee to effectively sectarianism, and often sectarianism which is antithetical to everything that we believe in. We don't believe in first cousin marriage. We believe that people should be allowed to attend football matches peaceably, and that if there's a threat to someone, it's the people who are doing the threatening who should be held to account, not those who are being threatened, being banned from coming for fear of something kicking off, and then making up false information in order to justify your decision, and then allowing Guilford to retire with a full pension and not having a complete investigation of it and saying, oh, well, it would be a huge distraction from the work that's going on. Rubbish. We need an investigation into what the hell went on, with that banning, and so on and so forth, as you say. And it is absolutely critical that this country recognizes 2 things. The first is that constitutionally, and I mean constitutionally, even though we don't have a written constitution, we are a Christian country. We are the head of state, our king, is head of the church. Bishopric, at least at the moment, sit in the House of Lords. Mm-hmm. The unification of state and church exists, even though we may have secular government. But what this government is doing, what Starmer is doing, is setting aside what it means to be a Christian country, and he is making us rapidly into a multi-faith country in which the Muslim community is the dominant, most muscular
that's the
community.
I've got no problem with a multi-faith country, although, as you quite rightly say, technically, as a matter of fact, this is not a secular state. We have an official state religion. I mean, you might like to know that Iraq, for example, is a secular state, but Britain isn't. We have a state religion, and that is the Church of England. I have obviously, I'm all in favour of lots of other faiths as well, but not if one of them is to be treated as
favourably,
as the sort of dictator of all policy in this country. This government never does a damn thing that it believes may even in a tiny way offend the Muslim community.
No.
There was no reason for Keir Starmer to recognise Palestine, was there? It caused all sorts of problems. Why did he do it? Because of the Muslim vote. Why won't he ban first cousin marriages, even though the medical proof is there? 15% of children from first cousin marriages are born deformed, birth defects. He won't ban it because the Muslims don't want him to ban it. He does.
And they're bringing in an anti-Muslimness law, which they've renamed from the Islamophobia law, but it's the same thing, a protection for an ideology, claiming that it needs the protection to avoid racism. Well, last time I looked, being a Muslim isn't of a particular race. Yeah. It's a belief system. Yeah. It's well beyond a religion, by the way. It's a belief system. It's a way of life. It's a political system. It's a legal system. Yeah, and it should be challenged.
Also, Ben, why is he bringing in, Islamophobia law? They've renamed it now. But why is he bringing in a sort of Islamophobia law? But he's not bringing any laws against anti-Semitism, is he? For example, he has presided over this pro-Muslim government, these pro-Muslim policies, to the extent that our Jewish community, only 277,000 of them, no longer feel safe in this country. That's a disgrace. That's a scandal.
It is a scandal. And I have my own little podcast that I do from time to time now. And I interviewed a Jewish gentleman last weekend. And this chap's born, bred, United Kingdom, 45 years old, extremely bright, and he was saying, well, I'm really considering leaving the UK. My family is thinking of leaving the UK because we feel threatened on our own streets. And the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were banned, but also people watching the show may remember the Jewish gentleman who was caught up in a pro-Palestinian anti-Israeli march, and the police, instead of protecting him, threatened him with arrest unless he removed himself, because they said he was stirring up problems. Do you remember that?
Well, Gideon Falter,
that's the one. Gideon,
chief executive of the campaign against anti-Semitism, was warned by a copper not to cross the road because there was a pro-Palestine march going through, and the copper said to him, well, I can't let you go across because you're openly Jewish.
Yeah, and you'll be arrested if you try to do it.
Yeah, so last time I looked, Ben, I don't think it's against the law to be Jewish.
No, and that's the extraordinary thing. So the police are taking the knee to mob rule, and that is the end of criminal justice.
And by extension, so is the government, as I said. When that duplicitous little conniving liar, the now former Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, decided to ban Jewish football fans from Aston Villa, the Tel Aviv Maccabi Europa League tie. At first, to be fair to Starmer and a few of his crew, they said, this is outrageous, you can't do this. And then all of a sudden they went very quiet on the issue and they let Guilford do it. And now what did we discover? He was just lying about the reasons. He's another example of this constant kowtowing to the Islamic vote, the Muslim viewpoint. And it's a danger, and it's getting more and more worrying. It seems to infect virtually every decision this government makes.
It does. And it's that, and it's all the other progressive discrimination, actually some of which we've touched on in this program already. For example, Jennifer's position in the NHS. It's part of the same, completely crazy thinking that she should have to address a man as a woman just because he self-identifies as it. It's this progressive discrimination that suggests that anyone from a minority, anyone with an immutable physical characteristic, anyone who wishes to be something that he isn't, or she wishes to be, can be that thing. It's liberalism gone mad in the protection of the individual's so-called right to do whatever they wish to do. The majority have to basically reject common sense, reject logic, and take the knee to these ideologies. It's complete lunacy.
Ben, great to talk to you again. A very unmonster-like performance, if you don't mind me saying so. Thank you so much for your time. I believe I'll see you tomorrow. That's Ben Habib, leader of Advance UK. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. In fact, get on the phone about some of the issues we've been talking about. What do you think about this mega embassy that Keir Starmer is going to now allow China to build right in the middle of the heart of the city, out London's financial district, where it will be able to spy on deals, on spy on everything really. 03444991000. Do you want Donald Trump? I bloody well do, I'll tell you that, to actually finally stop the Chagos deals, the madness of the Chagos Islands giveaway. He's woken up to the insanity of it, calls it an act of great stupidity. It isn't a done deal, it's not a sealed deal yet, so maybe the President of the United States of America can stop that. Would you like him to do that? 03444991000. And why did an immigration tribunal judge allow a Kenyan who raped and kidnapped his victim, who got 19 years in jail, why did that tribunal judge allow him to stay in Britain for the rest of his life if he so chooses, just because there was a long delay in getting round to his case? Why did that happen? 03444991000. And do you approve of what looks like now a new government policy to ban social media for the under-16s? Do you approve of that? Do you think that's a good idea? Strangely, Kemi Badenoch thinks it's a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea, but I'm happy to be put right if you disagree with me. 03444991000. Now, when we come back, we're going to deal with an unusual subject for this programme. It's Brand Beckham. Don't switch off. Stay there. No, seriously. I'm going to switch off, actually. No, seriously. David and Victoria Beckham are at war with their rebel estranged son, Brooklyn, who yesterday, the Beckham family feud has been boring me to tears for months. Yesterday, it exploded into a whole new region for me, interest, because Brooklyn released a 6-page statement pouring a bucket all over Brand Beckham, basically accusing his parents of coercive control, ruining his childhood, ruining his marriage, ruining his relationships, and he never wants to speak to them again. I'm on Team Brooklyn. Which side are you on? 03444991000. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk Posh and Becks. I don't often get the opportunity to say that, thank God, but this is getting quite interesting, this Beckham family war. David Beckham, for some reason, is in Davos at the World Economic Forum today. He's at the World Economic Forum. You're right, are you, David? Could you spell economic? Doubt it. Let's talk to a media industry commentator, PR expert, and a very old friend of mine, Mark Borkowski. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Kev. Good to see you.
Good to have you on board. As I say, I don't often dip my toes into the murky world of showbiz these days, thank God. But this one, I've been bored witless by the Beckham family feud for now, what is it, 2 months, because Brooklyn, has sent his entire family to Coventry, doesn't want to talk to them, blocked them on social media, and none of the journalists seem to be able to reveal what this was all about. Suddenly, yesterday, Brooklyn Beckham released this excoriating 6-page statement. People saying, he didn't write that. Well, so what? He clearly didn't write it, but it was very well written. And basically, it ripped Brand Beckham apart like a dose of salt. It was a forensic destruction, you know, basically of his entire life. Brand Beckham, he accused his parents of creating a false, mythical image of a perfect family. He accused them of controlling his life, trying to ruin most of his friends. Look at it, massive statement. Most of his relationships, trying to ruin his marriage. This extraordinary story that at his marriage to the heiress, the billionairess, Nicola Peltz, that come the groom's dance with the bride, in stepped Victoria, the mother, and stole the bridal dance. That's been denied, and then it wasn't denied. You know, we're back and forth all over the place. But what I think was the most interesting, you know, Brooklyn says, I believe the truth always comes out. And the narrative that my wife controls me is completely backwards. I've been controlled by my parents for most of my life. I do not want to reconcile with my family. I am not being controlled. I'm standing up for myself for the first time in my life. And he said that, you know, the truth means nothing to Posh and Becks. The only thing that matters to them is the creation of a kind of perfect family image and the constant promotion of Brand Beckham, to the point that when he said I was going to spend the rest of his life in America with Nicola Peltz, they tried to get the rights to his name, which he refused to give them. But boy, oh boy, did he go for his parents, and it certainly took the shine off that carefully created Brand Beckham, didn't it?
Well, it's a sort of ravings of spoilt child, isn't it, really?
I totally disagree. I totally disagree.
First,
I think he's a young man. He's a young man emerging from the coercive control cocoon.
He's nearly 30.
Yeah.
He's nearly 30. Young man, nearly 30. He's enjoyed 30 years of this privilege. He's shacked up with...
Well, that's not his decision, is it? He didn't ask to be Posh and Becks' son.
Well, and I think that...
he didn't like that life, and they didn't like the fact he didn't like it.
How many times have we encountered this fractious life of a celebrity child? It goes on to time immemorial. The Barrymores, look at Liza Minnelli, look at what happened to Judy Garland. It's toxic fame, Kev, you know. At the end of the day, this isn't real life. And I do think that Victoria and David tried to protect them from that because they went through it. Now,
by posting pictures of them as babies and little kids all the time on social, by invading their children's privacy, posting them all over social media. Aren't we a brilliant family? You think that's protecting their kids, do you?
I am not here to defend Sir David and Lady Beckham in terms of their pursuits.
You mean Posh and Becks?
Yeah, Sir Posh and Becks.
Yeah.
Look, I think that we see this all the time. We're feeding on this. There's a feeding frenzy on this story. There was a news vacuum for ages, which most of the tabloid press plundered because nothing was said about this rift. There was sort of silence.
But they didn't seem to be able to find out what it was all about, did they?
Well,
the lack of revelations in the press about the reasons for this split have been astonishing. Only yesterday, when he finally broke his silence and released that statement, did we find out what it was all about. It's about a guy he feels clearly that his entire life he is being coercively controlled on the sacred altar of Brand Beckham.
Well, that's his truth, as they say in this modern time. But do you not see the similarities that we have seen with Harry and Meghan? The only mistake Brooklyn Beckham has made at this point is that he hasn't done a book deal. He hasn't done a deal with Netflix, and he hasn't plundered this. I've noticed in The Sun tonight there's a story that, in fact, this so-called video of the first dance after he got married, which was stolen by Victoria, and she danced on him. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
what that
I
meant.
wonder what that meant. Yeah.
But they have the video. And you just think that must be the most sought-after video since the sex tape of the Kardashians. So I think that what we have here is a media frenzy. He's sticking the boot in, just as Harry did. He must be taking notes from what Harry did. And I think ultimately he will come to regret it, as Harry's come to regret it, because he's fired his best shot. What's next? I think the Beckham brand is a juggernaut. It will carry on. It will survive. It's obviously wounded. This was a nuclear charge. But I think the fallback will fall back on him. And I hope he goes on for what he's seeking, Kevin. He's seeking privacy. When have you heard that? How many times have you heard that in your life? Well, I'm seeking privacy. He didn't want privacy not so long ago, and he certainly doesn't want privacy over this. So this is a commercial piece of grifting here to make as much noise, and I'd be fascinated to see what happens next, because I think you touched on it, which is interesting, is every Beckham has a trademark. All the kids have a trademark. His trademark is running out.
Yeah.
And clearly they wanted to sign him back up. So will we see a new Peltz Beckham brand? What they were doing? I mean, he's hardly gifted, is he?
No,
as a person,
no, he's not.
He's tried everything, and I think that this is all pretty sad.
Well, his dad's a good footballer, but he's hardly gifted either, is he?
Well, whatever. He was a very gifted footballer, and he's gone on to sort of build something.
Yeah, he's got good managers. Yeah.
Well, yes.
Don't start saying David Beckham's a genius. I know David Beckham.
I wouldn't say that. But you know, Brooklyn Beckham has got clear on 17 million Instagram followers. That's one hell of a platform to do something.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know. You can see what's happening here. There's a whole industry gathering around him. The Peltz family are very, very.
He's been sucked
successful.
into Peltz territory, hasn't he?
Yes,
very much
into Meghan territory as well. And I think we got to look at the human cost of this.
Good point.
Let's look at the human cost of this. He will come to regret this at some point, and I think any family rift is made worse by it being, in full public view. And who are the winners out of this? Every news outlet across the globe who will be sucking every last bit of clickbait out of this, and he's handed them that data gold.
If Mark, it's true, and it seems to be, that Victoria Beckham stole the bridal dance, and instead of stepping onto the dance floor to dance with his new wife, Nicola Peltz, in stepped Victoria to dance with her son. That is deeply weird, isn't it?
Well, it depends.
That is deeply weird. That is deeply weird.
I'm going to give you. Look, I'm not an apologist for the Beckhams on the side, but I'll give you another scenario. What happens at weddings? I tell you what happens at weddings. Too many people drink too much alcohol and they do some really crazy thing. That's where we get the term dad dancing from. And we've all
But
seen
you don't
weddings.
think it's a bit weird for a mother to steal the bridal dance from the bride?
Well, she
come on, Mark. That is weird. That is deep space weird city. That is deep space weird city, and you know it. That is strange.
I want to see
that
the
is
video,
strange.
Kev.
Well,
I want to see the video.
Yeah. Well,
come on.
By the way, I should say that story has been denied. It was denied yesterday. No, that's not true. And then today, people who were at the wedding said, no, it is true. So the truth.
Yeah. Well, it's Fat Tony, the famous DJ's partner, isn't it, who was the DJ at the wedding. I mean, there's loads of people diving in. Of course, what we have now is sides being taken, and everybody be positing their view, and it'll keep the story rolling for 3 or 4 days, and then give it a week and we've forgotten about it, unless there's some corkers still hanging around that are going to be delivered to generate the sort of clickbait everybody is actually genuflecting at.
Yeah, all I know, Mark, is the fact that I no longer have to report on that awful couple.
Well, you miss it, Kev. You missed it.
No, you do not know. You cannot estimate the levels of joy I feel that I don't have to care about this crap anymore. Although the statement yesterday, because Henry and I, my wife, we've been laughing about this story for months about how boring it is, the Beckham family feud. It's been a big joke in our house. And then suddenly last night I saw this statement, I said, do you know what, this feud may have just got interesting. She went, yeah, this is interesting. So it did take it to a new level. I wonder what the next step will be. But thanks, mate. Good to hook up with you again, and about time we had a drink. All right?
Always up for it, Cam. Good to see you.
All right, Mark. Take care now, mate. That's Mark Borkowski, media industry commentator and top PR publicist. Old friend of mine, as you may have worked out. After the break, we got a call for someone who used to work for David and Victoria, for the Beckhams. So we'll talk to him after the break.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's time that we're going to talk to David, who used to work for David and Victoria Beckham, in just a second. But time now to find out how you could be in with the chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star intercontinental hotel, and £2,500 spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Listen to how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343-418-7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
So you don't want to miss out on the trip of a lifetime. Good luck. Now, as promised, let's go straight over to David in London, who, intriguingly, I get a note here saying, I worked for Posh and Becks. Hello, David. What did you do? What did you do for the Beckhams?
I worked for them for 2 weeks only, but it was I was contracted in with a friend of mine who was setting up all their different televisions in all the different rooms.
Oh, really? In their new London house, yeah?
Yeah, well, it wasn't their new London. Well, it was the new London house that they were staying in until their proper house was being built, I think.
Okay.
But that was only a couple of years back, probably about 2016 or something.
Yeah, okay. And you found them very nice?
Oh, they were really pleasant. Yeah, David Beckham kept offering me a cup of tea, and I kept saying, no thanks, no thanks. In the end, I said, okay. And then he surprised me because he actually turned around, I was in the kitchen, he turned around and he made me a cup of tea and handed it to me. I was expecting to get somebody to make a cup of tea for me, not to get that. And then Victoria came in and she said, would you like a cake or a biscuit? And I said, no.
I bet she didn't have a cake or a biscuit, did she?
No, it's funny, it's really weird, but they were lovely. The whole family were there. Piper was there, and
was Brooklyn there in those days?
Yeah, Brooklyn was there.
Blimey, that dates your story, David. How long ago was this?
I don't know. I mean, it was 2016. Possibly.
Okay. So you would have been still a kid then, yeah, I guess.
Oh yeah, they were all playing in football in the garden and stuff.
Nice. Did David Beckham play football with them in the garden?
Yeah, he did play with them. Yeah, and when he was having his when we set up his Sky connection, he actually came up to me and said, oh, thanks for getting the Sky working. I said, oh, you're keen on football, are you? He said,
yeah.
A bit.
Did you say that? What did he say?
He said, you're keen on football. And I said to him, are you keen on football? He said, yeah, just a bit.
That's very funny. That's very funny. So you found them in those days to be a very happy, obviously very rich family, yeah?
Yeah, I was chatting with Piper in her room because she had a playroom which had lots of her drawings from school in it. And
Harper, the little girl, yeah.
Harper, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they were great, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see any friction then, but they were all really, grounded people.
I suppose, David. I mean, not that I care either way, but I've sort of declared myself to be on Team Brooklyn just for a laugh, really. But I suppose, given what you're saying, I mean, they're very happy, as you say, very wealthy family in those days. It's sort of sad, I guess, that it's come to what's happening now.
Yeah, it is a shame, isn't it, really? They're like the Harry and Meghan of the working class, I suppose.
Other people have made that analogy. That's a very good point. Well, David, thank you for that little insight into Mr. and Mrs. Beckham and their family. Thanks for calling. Excellent. David in London. There you go. That maybe slightly changes my opinion of Posh and Becks. I like that story in making them tea. I like that. I do like that. Do you want to know the most famous person who made me a cup of tea? This is for older viewers. Twiggy, the superstar model. So when I was in LA, I had to go and interview her house. She's very, what's her name? Leslie something. That's her real name. And she just said, want a cup of tea? And I went, yeah. And then she made me a cup of tea, and I was sitting there thinking, Twiggy's making me a cup of tea. Pretty amazing. Was it? I don't know. But, sometimes I suppose it's unusual when superstars make you a cup of tea, as David was pointing out. Anyway, right, let's get ready to go to break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to an author and a podcaster called Tim Samuels, who has made a podcast series about DEI, diversity, equality and inclusivity. And he says it has created generations of disaffected, disillusioned men. Are they now the inferior citizens? That next. Stick around, stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I want to hear from you about some of the stories we've been covering. What do you think about the Chinese embassy? Is the Prime Minister right to give the mega embassy in London City District, our financial district, the go-ahead, the green light? Is he right, or is that a threat to national security? The Chagos Islands, Donald Trump has finally woken up to the potential danger of us handing the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, China's best friend. There's no reason for us to do this. Nobody knows why. The Prime Minister and his acolytes, Lord Richard Harmer, the Attorney General, are doing this. We think it's because they don't like imperialism. They think it's a throwback to the British Empire and colonial, and therefore we must hand back the Chagos to its rightful owners, Mauritius, who have never owned it. It's also, Mauritius is like 1,300 miles or so away from the Chagos Islands. So it's like the distance of London to Marrakesh or something. It's hardly a next door neighbour. So why are we doing that? Should President Trump put a spoke in the wheels of that deal at the last moment, because it's not quite a sealed deal, so there's still time to stop it. So let's hope the president does that. What do you think? Also, what did you think of the case of the Kenyan kidnapper and rapist who got 19 years in jail? When he came out, he should have been automatically deported, but his case slipped through the cracks, so it wasn't until many years later that the Home Office got around to saying you're deported. He then appealed, saying you've taken too long to make this decision, and an immigration judge upheld his right to stay, to remain as long as he likes, because it had taken too long to get round to dealing with his case. Are you happy with that? 03444991000. And should the government ban social media for under 16s like they have in Australia? It looks like Keir Starmer is set to do that. Let me know. 03444991000. Get on the phone. 03444991000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. Now, my next guest is the host of a podcast series called White Men Can't Work. Now, it's all about DEI, diversity, equality and inclusivity, and which, as he quite rightly said in a big article in the Mail on Saturday, who could complain about that? That's a good thing, isn't it? But, you know, when companies talk about a diversity hire, this is a diversity hire, that means it's not going to be a white guy. White guys, white males, seem to have become, you know, the pariahs of our culture. You know, they're the last people who get jobs. Companies, you know, if you hire a middle-aged white bloke, they think, you know, that doesn't look very diverse, that doesn't look very modern, that looks like traditional and old-fashioned. So what Tim is saying, and it's backed up by a lot of people, a lot of disillusioned, disaffected, rejected males, is that this DEI madness, if you like, which controls everything in corporate land, has created generations, a generation, possibly more than one generation, of disillusioned, rejected males. You know, careers have been ruined, and it has pushed some of these rejected men into the realms of extreme misogyny. You know, they hold it against women. So let's talk to Tim. A warm welcome. He's a former BBC reporter, actually. Tim Samuels. Welcome, Tim.
Hi, Kevin. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming on. Great piece in the Mail on Saturday. And as you quite rightly point out, it sounds very good, doesn't it? Diversity, equality, inclusion. You know, as you quite rightly said, who can complain about that? But it's turned into a sort of system that has turned white males particularly sort of, shall we say, white middle-aged males, into the least likely people to be employed. So in the old days, women and people of colour would probably, with great justification, complain that they were prejudiced against to get jobs, that that people favoured white middle-aged males all the time. Well, okay, great. So we took steps to redress that balance, to get rid of that injustice. But the pendulum has swung so far the other way that now it is white males who, as your podcast says, can't work, can't get work. Careers are being ruined. Lives are being ruined. You've cited quite a few examples of decent men who have been left shattered by this. How has this happened, and what do you think we can do about it?
Yeah, I mean, no one's denying that white men have had it, on the whole, good for a pretty long time, and that if there is prejudice or discrimination, it absolutely had to be addressed. But there was a corporate panic. It was starting to build. Probably for around the 2010s, the Me Too movements accelerated it. And then after Black Lives Matter, particularly in the States, it went into hyperdrive, and companies were desperate to either do the right thing or at least be seen to do the right thing. And they panicked, and they wanted to bring in something which they thought kind of overnight would fix this systemic prejudice. And they reached for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But it wasn't just some sort of warm and fuzzy HR policy. DEI had been sort of bubbling away. It came out of this kind of early 70s cultural Marxism that had been bubbling away in very sort of far left academia. And it sees the world through this oppressor-oppressed prism. Very, very simply, it's the battle between oppressed and oppressed. And if you're white and male, you're naturally an oppressor. And it wants to kind of even out through this kind of Marxist worldview. And very unwittingly, our biggest companies introduced something which was really very radical overnight. It wasn't just a question of let's stamp out prejudice. It actively, you have companies like Coca-Cola telling its employees to be less white. You have the NHS and our police forces still running courses which try to take on whiteness as they see it. And it's incredibly ideological. So what could have been this kind of very powerful moment to make a difference, to stamp out the discrimination against women and people of color, suddenly became this very ideological moment, which lurches to becoming avowedly anti-white, anti-male, anti-Semitic as well. And as a result, these quotas come in overnight, which don't do anyone any favors. And, from the polling that we carried out for White Men Can't Work, ironically titled, you see an awful lot of men feeling actively discriminated against. So about 36% of young men said they've lost out on promotions, career opportunities directly because they are white men. Nearly half of all guys are walking around on eggshells at work, worried that they could do or say the wrong thing, that could be perceived as a microaggression, and that's it for your career. So, what we found in the show is an awful lot of guys are fearful. Their mental health has taken a real impact. There's anxiety. There is reverse discrimination. There are guys at an ad agency we spoke to who were sacked unlawfully simply because they were men. It was reverse to sex discrimination, which an employment tribunal upheld. And all well and good, you might say, if this was actually working. But the irony is it's spectacularly backfired, because millions of men are going into this DEI training and being told, oh, by the way, you're all latent racists. No one likes to be told they're a racist. And it's backfired. So Harvard have studied 8 million people who've been through this DEI training and found it actually makes things worse for women and minorities, because you've riled up men by A, accusing them of being racist, and B, having a huge impact on their career prospects. So it hasn't benefited anyone. And that's the great shame. There was this opportunity, Kevin, to make a difference, and it's been blown because companies have brought in something which was actually incredibly radical.
And I mean, effectively, DEI, for all its good intentions, it dates back, doesn't it, to the 1960s. But it has grown and grown and grown into a kind of monster and a perversion of what it was supposed to be. It was quite rightly, it was a very decent idea, which was this, you know, a black woman in the 1960s, either in Britain but especially in America, would have significantly less chance of landing a job than a white male. DEI sought to redress that balance, to make it fair, to make sure that the black lady, the black woman, had as much chance of getting a job as the white guy. That's great. But what it has turned into is a perversion of that, insofar as now the black woman has a far greater chance of landing that job than the white male. So it has just turned prejudice and unfairness and bias on its head, and you cite several examples. I mean, you talk about the Suffolk police case. Only last week, I believe it was, that a set of male Suffolk cops who were part of a special patrol were replaced by women for no reason at all, apart from the fact that the bosses decided we need this patrol to be more diverse. And these police officers, the male police officers, said, well, you're sacking us for one reason, because we're blokes. They won that case, sex discrimination. You talk about Aviva, the insurance giant, where the boss has made a point, or in the past said, I will only make a non-diversity hire if I fully explain that. In other words, if she hires a white bloke, a white male, she feels she has to explain that. In other words, her default setting is not to employ white men. You talk about a Hollywood screenwriter who wrote an essay, a guy called Jacob Savage. He wrote an essay for the online magazine Compact, in which he said, it's strange and more than a little poisonous to see yourself buffeted by forces beyond your control, and essentially to have your career defined by the colour of your skin. J.D. Vance retweeted that on social media, 4.5 million views. So it's striking a chord with many, many people. So what we're talking about here, Tim, is that a well-intentioned system aimed at balancing the playing field when it came to employment has turned into a monster of bias and prejudice against one section of the community, white males. Weird.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kevin. I mean, it started off really under JFK and the civil rights legislation which he tried to introduce and was carried on after his assassination. And, you know, there was terrible, you know, prejudice at the time. And it's not to say prejudice hasn't persisted since, but to introduce these overnight quotas doesn't seem to help anyone. As I said, it creates a backlash. You know, a number of people you speak to say, you know, there was a black medical student I interviewed in the States who says she's got her place on merit, but she hates the fact that people now think, oh, maybe you are this sort of DEI hire.
Yeah.
And overnight quotas, they put people in positions who, you know, might not be there legally or capable of them. And it's a shortcut, because what really works when you speak to the Harvard professor I was working with is you've got to go in and target people from disenfranchised, marginalized backgrounds as young as 13 or 14 in secondary school. You support them through that. You give them the skills and the confidence. Once they're in workplaces, you give them adequate mentoring and support. And that's not some sort of sexy overnight PR quota. That's not the RAF saying it's going to have 20 or 30% of this overnight, but it actually works. Whereas, you know, someone like the RAF did announce quotas and then they were found to be discriminatory, or Thames Valley Police started to over promote people. And then again, that was discriminatory. So it's saying that if there are problems that need addressing, and of course there are, do it in ways that work. Whereas DEI doesn't work. It doesn't benefit those people. But it's become this sort of £10 billion industry. It's become almost embedded in HR.
Yeah, yeah,
and it's really hard to dislodge.
It certainly is, and you say that 36% of white men under 34 in Britain say that they've lost out on promotion or other opportunities because of their gender and or their race. You also I mean, what we're talking about here, Tim, is the well-intentioned system of DEI has spilled over into an opposite kind of prejudice and also spilled over into a kind of madness. You tell the story of a schoolboy who, during a lesson on suffragettes, mentioned that not only did women used to be denied the vote, so were quite a few men denied the vote as well. For saying that in the classroom, he was put in detention, and his parents contacted over this display of toxic masculinity. So there's an insanity about this. You used to host a radio show on BBC Five Live called Men's Hours, you know, a kind of counterpoint to Women's Hour on Radio 4. Good idea, if you ask me. And when you bumped into an acquaintance because of you taking up the cause, if you like, of white males, one of your acquaintances said, "I hear you're the new Andrew Tate." So in other words, it's not only spilled into an opposite kind of prejudice, you know, no longer are sort of women of colour prejudiced against gay people, sort of white heterosexual males who are prejudiced against. It has also spilled into a kind of madness, the mad wokery that we see everywhere. On that point, you know, now that you've taken up what I might say is quite a brave cause in today's very woke world, how difficult has that been? Have you encountered a lot of you know, opposition? You know, you quote one woman saying, "Well, what exactly have you men got to complain about?" Which is outdated, isn't it? If you'd have said that to me or you in the 1970s, it would have been a fair point. You know, what do you got to complain about? You get all the opportunities, you get all the jobs, you get all the promotion. But if you say it now, it doesn't make sense because it's not relevant, it's not right. What have we got to complain about? Well, not you and I, but what do white men have to complain about in the employment market? One hell of a lot, right?
And the thing is, all this has consequences because, you know, it's very easy to lump men together as one block. And, you know, no one denies there are some men at the top who, you know, in politics or business are overrepresented and are having a perfectly nice time of things. But a lot of guys are really, really struggling out there. And that's why I did Men's Hour. I wrote a book called Who Stole My Spirit, which really looked at what's going on with men at the moment. And a lot of guys, as we can see from the terrible, terrible mental health rates, the addiction rates, the alcohol rates, homeless, prison rates, all, you know, highly, highly populated by men, are having a really hard time in this economy. You know, we're struggling to make ends meet. We're struggling to find meaning. Jobs for life are long gone. And so much of our mental health and our identity is tied up with our work. And so DEI comes along and, you know, we're already fragile at the moment. A lot of guys are. And it makes it even more vulnerable for men.
Yeah.
And men react to that. They might become more depressed. It might affect our mental health. But it drives an anger, and it drives an anger towards the other, whether that's women or immigrants. So even if you think, you know, boo-hoo, the patriarchy was long overdue a collapse, and, you know, some men are going to be collateral damage, what you are doing is you're driving men towards extreme misogynists like Andrew Tate, which is what I'm trying to warn against. And you're also driving towards populism, and populism on the far left and the far right, which is, as we know, on the resurgence across Latin America, Europe, lots of other places. Is generally driven by men. You know, it's men who feel alienated who are driving this. And this zealousy around DEI is pushing that even further.
Yeah, because Tim, you know, it is true now, isn't it? It's a truism that there's a palpable unfairness towards, you know, the worst thing you can be these days, not only in the field of employment, but just in the field of British society, is to be a white, middle-aged, heterosexual male. They have become almost a kind of persecuted subsection of our society. It is kind of weird. Just before you go, great talking to you, by the way, really interesting. A word from you when I talk about how, and I think you agree, how DEI has spilled over not only into a new kind of prejudice, it has also spilled into a kind of insanity. The insanity that mad wokery engenders. It is this. I want to ask you about what we discovered, I believe it was last week, that, you know, various police forces, specifically or particularly the Met Police, biggest police force in the land, have for years pursued this kind of rampant DEI policy. We must get more diverse, we must get more people of colour, we must get more gay people into the police force. To the extent, so devoted did our police forces become to DEI that they abandoned all common sense checks on the people they were recruiting to become police officers. A really important job. And there was that one example, wasn't there, of the guy who went for an interview, applied to be a copper, went for an interview, and they discovered in his background, 2 years ago he was accused of child abduction and child rape. Now, he wasn't convicted, but, you know, that's red light. You know, you don't get to be a copper with that in your background. That then went to an appeal board, which was there to check on diverse recruitment, and they reversed that decision, and he was allowed into the police force because he was a man of colour, DEI. And guess what? Within 2 years he was in jail because, using the uniform as his cover, he waged a campaign of terror against a series of victims, kidnapping and raping them. But that's a long-winded story to say that DEI with our police forces led to a kind of madness where they stopped checking on people properly in their rampant desire to hire diverse people, diversity hires. Diversity hires, you know, are people of colour, gay people. Why wouldn't white people be involved in the word diversity? Diversity doesn't mean the exclusion of all white people. But a word from you on that particularly egregious example of DEI madness, recruiting thousands and thousands and thousands of coppers about whom they knew nothing. They didn't check them, but they were hired because they were diverse.
Which is what happens when you introduce overnight quotas and a pressure to meet a quota. People drop standards, and that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help people of colour, it doesn't help women, it doesn't help existing officers. The better example is to look at how the US Army has traditionally recruited, where it doesn't drop its standards at all. You know, you've got standards which you have to hit. But what it does is it helps people from underprivileged backgrounds or minority communities when they're much younger. As I said, it goes into high school, it helps them through that, and it mentors them through the army. So you're getting people who would have been good enough to join, but perhaps came from the wrong background or may have been subject to prejudice, but they're there on merit. So when you're looking around your fellow soldiers, you're not thinking, well, he or she's the weak link, they're a diversity hire. You know that they're there on merit. So you're getting the best people, you're getting those people who may not have had the chance, given their backgrounds, but you're not dropping standards. And it's this kind of mad overnight rush to bring in quotas that has led to standards dropping, and that just doesn't help anyone. You know, these are systemic problems that have been around for centuries. We can't just fix them overnight, and trying to fix them overnight actually makes them worse.
Tim, fascinating discussion. I'll have a listen to your podcast, White Men Can't Work, and come on again soon, eh? Really good to talk to you. That was Tim Samuels. He's an award-winning documentary maker. He used to work for the BBC, and you know, he's produced this. He's an author as well, but he's produced this podcast, White Men Can't Work. It's a series, and he's really touched the nerve. He's really struck a chord. You know, maybe you're out there. Maybe you're a white guy who feels that DEI has wrecked your career, deprived you of promotion, deprived you of landing the jobs that you think you were suited for. Let me know. Do you think you're a victim of DEI? 0344 499 1000. You can call about that or anything else, because after this break, the floor is yours. We're going to talk to all of you for the next 35 minutes or so. So get on the phone, 0344 499 1000, anything you like. But let's talk. The main thing is let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. I don't know if we've got any WhatsApp voice notes, but I will play those if we have. Also, I'll read out some of your messages. So much still to come. Stay tuned.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of calls coming in about DEI. Do you feel that your career has been affected by DEI? If you're a white guy, have you missed out on promotion? Have you not landed jobs that you thought you might have got because of DEI, in your opinion? Or maybe you think DEI is a good thing. I mean, I think DEI in principle, diversity, equality and inclusivity, you know, a level playing field for everyone, in principle is a great idea. But we know, as I was discussing with Tim Samuels, it's just swung way too far the other way. And now we have a system. We used to have a system in the 60s and 70s that was undoubtedly biased and prejudiced against people of colour, against gay people, against disabled people, and that was horrific. Now we have a system that is really good to people of colour, to women, to gay people, to disabled people, and that's excellent. You know, don't get me wrong. But it has turned into something that is really unfair towards white men. It does seem to be the case, doesn't it? 0344 499 1000. Are you a victim of this? Let me know. Be interesting to talk. Let's go to the phones. I'll play some... yeah, I've got a couple of WhatsApp voice notes. We'll play those in a minute. But first, let's talk to regular caller. Always good to talk to him. Mark in Lincolnshire. Hi, Mark. What do you think about this DEI? It's an interesting topic, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Hi, Kev. It's interesting in the sense of it's a purely imported problem. It's a solution to an imported problem at the end of the day.
What do you mean imported? You mean we imported it from America? Or
no?
Where did we import DEI from? I mean, technically, we did import it from America because it was like invented in America in the 1960s when JFK was still around. But when you say we've imported that problem, what do you mean?
Well, let's be honest about what DEI really means. What it means is essentially, preferential treatment for non-white people, which is what
that is what it's come to mean, and that's a perversion of what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a system under which no one gets preferential treatment, but it's not really working out like that, is it?
Well, this is the point, isn't it? And that's kind of what I meant by it being an imported problem.
Yeah.
Because if you, let's say, for example, now I've mentioned to you in the past, recently I consider myself to be an ethno-nationalist at this point. I look at a percentage of, 90% ethnically English, like it used to be back in the 90s, where a lot of these problems didn't really exist. I think DEI in and of itself, as you say, if it's relating to, helping people with disabilities and all this kind of stuff, get on a bit better in the world.
To give them an equal break. It used to be the system, Mark, there's no doubt about it, that white heterosexual men got all the jobs, got all the promotion. They were the favoured sons, if you know what I mean. But what's happened, and then along came DEI to try and redress the balance. But here we are, in 2026, and the pendulum has swung far too far the other way. I mean, I was out of the country from 1990 to nearly the year 2000, and when I came, the Britain I left in terms of the employment scene and the Britain I came back to were very different places. All of a sudden, everyone, it was all DEI and HR and all that sort of thing. The point is that now there is no doubt. Look, here, I'll tell you what, I'll read you a little note. Well, no, I'll tell you what's in it. Basically, I've had several texts, but one text here is saying that he couldn't get a job for love nor money. He was advised to say he had a disability, or he was non-binary, or he was trans, and he would get a job. He didn't do that, but he knows of a lot of other people who did, and it worked. In other words, companies, obviously not publicly, but they have a policy whereby they skip over the white applicants, the white male applicants, and they look for the women of colour, gay people. They call those diversity hires. It's not diverse to cut out one section of the community, as in white men, is it?
Well, you're right in what you're saying. I think that a lot of the problem with all this stuff is, again, if you go back to, say, for example, the 50s, so before you start importing people from other countries, before any of this is an issue, so most women are probably stay-at-home mothers, all the rest of it.
Well, some.
Everything kind of ticked along, tickety-boo on all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Then what we did was we decided, against the people's wishes, because they've always voted since the 50s, they've always voted against immigration, for example. They just keep bringing more and more in, and then they start changing things, and then it's all, then the American stuff starts coming into play. Yeah. And then we end up in this situation where...
Yeah, I see what you're saying. What you're saying What you're saying is that we've created a multicultural society, and that isn't to be discussed right now, but the multicultural society has turned DEI into almost the heartbeat of the employment scene, the heartbeat of corporations, because there are so many, if you like, diverse applicants. But diverse applicants only get the jobs if they're not white.
Well, I mean, you look at the other side of it as well, Kev, and look at one of the reasons that they decided to go along the multicultural route was obviously there's a lot of ideology based in that, but a big part of it as well was equal rights for women. Now, in theory, that's absolutely fine.
Well, yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
It's better than absolutely fine. It's what we demand, obviously.
No, Kev. I'm not saying that equal rights for women is a bad thing. What I'm saying
No,
is...
because it's not a bad thing, is it?
When you created... Yeah, but what they did with that was they basically said that a woman can have everything. So what you now have is women that basically... You know, the stay-at-home mother thing, that's out of the window now. So what you now have is, as they keep using the excuse for, more and more immigration, because our birth rates of the ethnic people of the country, our birth rates are really low. Well, our birth rates are really low because you've told women they can do everything. You don't have to have kids. Here's abortion. You don't want a kid, there's abortion. So there's a whole plethora of things that have gone on over the last 50 years. Most of it's ideological. That creates the issues where we have today, which for somebody like me, as I said at the beginning there, as an ethno nationalist, it becomes really, really difficult to cope and deal with because I sit and look at this stuff and I'm thinking, why? Why are we living like this? Because we now, as you're saying there tonight, we've got a situation where white guys are basically just out and out.
Well, you see, what the trouble with the rejection of white males is it's spinning many rejected men into the not very nice world of misogyny. They're lashing out, they're blaming women, they're blaming people of colour, they're blaming gay people.
Well, what can you
it's not that it isn't women's fault. It's not the fault of people of colour or gay people. It's just that DEI has become a monster in itself, and it is now. I've got to move on, Mark, but it is now the opposite of what it was supposed to be. It is not a system by which people get equal opportunities, because it's unequal opportunities for white males. Interesting. Mark, I've got to move on, but always good to talk to you. Fascinating. Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's go to Thomas in Coventry, who also wants to talk about DEI. What would you like to say, Thomas?
Hi, Kevin.
Hello,
Great
mate.
show, mate.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the key things for me is where we talk about the sort of DEI and we're talking about the white males, one key thing that people are missing is the fact that the white males seem to be literally the bottom of the link.
Well, yeah, no, that's exactly it, Thomas. That's exactly the point.
And of course, the other thing is we talk about females having the opportunity within the workplace, within the world, and totally everything going great for them, which is not a problem. However, when you come to a situation where you look at marriage, 90% of guys are what you would call marriage for life.
Okay.
I think a lot of women look at it as a 10-year stint.
That depends on their husbands, I guess.
Exactly, but they know that potentially after 10 years, they're going to walk away with potentially 70% of the assets.
Well, 50, isn't it 50%, isn't it?
Well, it's supposed to be 50.
Yeah. What's that? Go on, yeah.
But my point is, and this is what's scaring a lot of guys, and I know from the people that I come into contact with, purely from a marriage point of view, a lot of people are reluctant, because of the scales being against them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get what you mean, but I mean, I think it's probably a bit unfair to accuse women of always looking at potential husbands in terms of a 10-year deal. I think my wife, when she married me, she took one look at me and said, I'm going to give this guy 10 minutes, and it didn't work out. But no, actually, no, I'm still with her, actually. We've gone a lot more than 10 years. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'll go along with everything you say, but what is true is, for example, back in the 1970s or the 1960s, if you were, shall we say, a disabled gay person of colour, your chances of employment were next to zero. If you are now a gay person of colour in a wheelchair, disabled, your chances of employment are probably higher than the average white middle-aged male. Do you see what I mean? And that's why DEI, equality, has become a perversion of what it's supposed to be. There isn't equality because white men are not being treated equally. They're getting a bum deal. There's no doubt about it. So DEI is not achieving what it's supposed to achieve, which is an even playing field, equal chances for everyone. It's become almost a parody of itself, to be honest with you. Interesting point though, Thomas. I've got to move on because I've got to go to a commercial break, but good to talk to you. Thanks for the call. Thomas in Coventry there. Let's go to break. We'll play a WhatsApp voice note when we come back. Got lots of calls and I'll read some messages, so stay exactly where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're taking calls, we're taking messages and WhatsApp voice notes. Let's quickly play a WhatsApp voice note. In fact, this is Perry. He's talking about the story we launched the show with, the Campsfield £70 million refurbishment to provide migrants rejected for asylum and foreign criminals with 160 beds, a detention centre in Oxfordshire, costing that works out about £435,000 per bed. Took 6 years. What? Let's hear what Perry has to say.
Evening, Kevin. £70 million to refurbishment. I would love to know if an audit could be done to find out if any politician had any links to the person that was awarded the contracts, because this is just a ridiculous amount of money and someone is making serious money out of this, and I think there should be an investigation, a paper trail to find out where that money went.
I think it's an interesting point that Perry's making. I think we should look into this, because if a refurbishment costs £70 million, I guarantee you if they'd shopped around for a different contractor, a different construction firm, they'd have probably been able to do it for 10 million. You know, you can always get a better deal, and the question will be is how hard did this government try to get a good deal there? It doesn't look like they tried very hard at all. Quick couple of messages. Suze says, when I was in my 50s and redundant, I applied for hundreds of jobs, a good CV and a track record of success. I got no interviews. An HR director friend told me to say I had a disability or was non-binary or trans, and I would get through screening. I didn't lie, but I know people who did, and it worked. Elaine says, just 2 words, Team Brooklyn. Yeah, me too. Stuart Brown says, Kev, Brooklyn should remember that he could have been brought up in poverty by some parents instead of being given everything and brought up in luxury. Yeah, but that's not his choice. You know, yeah, he had a nice, well provided for upbringing, but it doesn't seem like he enjoyed it much. He felt controlled. So just because you get loads of money and your parents are rich doesn't mean to say you have a happy childhood. Doesn't look like Brooklyn did. But fair point. This is oh yeah. Ali has made a good point. No social media for under 16s, but they can vote. Well, technically, I suppose you can't vote till you're 16. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Good point. In one breath, the government treats 16-year-olds like children. We can't let them have social media. And in the next breath, treats them like adults. You can have the vote. A good point. Very good point. What else have I got? This is Hugh Sawyer. Hugh says, Basingstoke. Who's from Basingstoke? Ben Habib, that is, talks about Britain as a Christian country. Remind me, do we have an archbishop to fight our corner? It's all gone very quiet since Welby left ages ago. Well, Hugh, I can inform you they appointed a woman about a couple of months ago. Was it last month? I can't remember, but can't remember her name either. But we now have a lady who is the Archbishop of Canterbury. Kaz in Bristol says, Ben for number 10, most intelligent politician we have. What a brilliant man. Stephen was wonderful. Praise for Stephen Barrett there, the barrister and commentator. Let's go back to the phones. Oh, wait a minute. No, haven't I got to do... Yeah. Let's do the competition first. We've got to give you lots of opportunities for this. Time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star intercontinental hotel and £2,500 spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl. To top it all off, listen to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
There you go. You don't want to miss out on the trip of a lifetime, so good luck. I've got one more note that I want to read out. This is from Tad. This is something I've been thinking about. Kemi Badenoch at the weekend said, Britain is not broken. It's like, really? I think you find, Kemi, it's busted to bits. Tad writes, Kemi Badenoch insists Britain is not broken. I don't give much chance for her chances at the next election if she can't see what is evident to the rest of the people. And Isabel Oakeshot's excellent piece clearly shows. Exactly right. Britain is not broken. Kemi, get with the programme. That would be my advice, because Britain is not only broken, it's broken to pieces. It's shattered. Don't be ridiculous. Britain is not broken. Yeah, right. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Tristan in Bedford. Tristan, so you think that you lost your job because of DEI? Explain why, if you would.
Well, I worked for one of the big 6 energy companies. I'd been there for over 10 years, so I thought I was secure, to be honest with you. You know, everything seemed absolutely fine, and then suddenly I mean, I did speak my mind a little bit, I suppose, but I felt like it was just waiting for an excuse, I suppose. And
you never want to speak your mind at work, Tristan. Take it from an old stager. I'm always doing that and always getting into trouble, but sorry, carry on.
So I was brought in, and then they said, oh, they're happy with everything, and then they said they're going to give me a bonus, and I was like, okay, that sounds good, you know, everything's all right. And then they said, oh, once they've given you this, then you can go. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, yeah, you know, once you've accepted this, then you can go. And then they came up with something without, I never heard of it before, called Without Prejudice. I'm sure you probably heard of it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly HR come in, and then they basically offered me a settlement and said, yeah, you can go.
And why did you think, Tristan, then, that this was because of DEI? I mean, I'm assuming you're a white bloke.
Because
you're a white guy, yeah.
Because for the past 6 months, I was getting targeted like a ridiculous amount. And the thing is, I wasn't given an actual reason. There was no actual reason.
And did you perceive, Tristan, in your job at this energy company, did you perceive that more and more women were being recruited, more and more people of colour, more and more did you perceive that was going on?
I did start to see that, but as I said, it was just quite a bit of a shock. To be honest.
No. After 10 years, it's a hell of a shock, isn't it, to suddenly be let go when you thought you might be there for life, right?
And yeah, and then they said about you have to get an employment solicitor, you know, and then that go through all of that. And they said, oh, don't worry, you've got 7 days to think about it. And I was shocked.
A whole 7 days. Thank you very much.
And the thing is you said about disability. I also suffer from Crohn's, and I've also had cancer as well. And they supported me through all of that.
And then you made the mistake of recovering, so you're no longer disabled. Therefore, you lost your job. No, let's not make. But seriously, how are you doing now? Did you manage to get another job?
I've got another job. I'm going to be starting next month.
Oh, brilliant!
Still in the energy industry. Had to go through jump through so many different hoops and everything like that. And I felt like I had to sort of self-censor, to be honest with you, certain opinions and stuff.
Yeah, look. I mean, I'm afraid I'm not condoning the system, but you've got to play along with the way it works now. Otherwise, you really will fall by the wayside. Look, fascinating story. I'm really glad you got another job, Tristan. So well done. It's a difficult world out there. Thanks very much for an excellent call. Stay strong. That's Tristan in Bedford. Let's go to a break, shall we? When we come back, a couple more calls.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I got a great text from Margaret. Kev, what exactly has Shabana Mahmood done since September? Nothing. Hard as nails. No. She hasn't got a clue. Just waffle and word salad. Starmer, 70 million quid. What an utter disgrace. Not monopoly money. It's ours. Stop the bloody boats. Yeah, I told you earlier, didn't I? They've been pouring across. Let's get the numbers again, just so as you're aware. People, this very quietly, the migrant crisis in terms of cross-channel small boats has erupted, folks. So last Wednesday, 171. Thursday and Friday, cool, nobody. Saturday, 317. Sunday, 138. And yesterday, Monday, 275. They're pouring across again, folks. Let's talk to Kevin in Leicester. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Kev. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Do you want to talk about Greenland?
Yeah, I'll be as quick as I can because you've had some long calls. And
Yeah, and I've got to take a couple more as well. So
okay, right.
Let's
I'll just make
speed
my
through
point.
this.
I will do. Right, basically, people are criticising DT, Trump, for doing this, and they're saying with the 1951 agreement, he can put a military base wherever he likes, or as many as he likes, all over Greenland to stop any problems, but it's not his land. And those military bases will be to protect the entirety of NATO, not just America, the entirety of Europe, which basically, other than Poland and Italy and Hungary, nobody in Europe gets on with America because they're all lefties and they all like China. So at the end of the day, well, it's true. Look,
I'm not arguing with you, Kev. I'm not arguing.
Right, so why should the American taxpayer fund all of that? That is not fair on the Americans. Why should they get nothing out of it? So I think the reason he actually wants to talk about these minerals and potential of that, he thinks, well, you know what, if I want to fork out our American taxpayers' money for a load of people who don't even think the same way as me, and I keep forking out for you, who've not been looking after your own country.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the day, I want what I can get out of that land.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, I think what you're saying is, you know, none of us should have confidence that the European nations, wimps that they are, can defend Greenland. Greenland is becoming strategic. It is becoming a land of great interest to the Chinese and the Russian. And Donald Trump is saying, I need to have Greenland to defend Greenland. However, it's just not that simple. You can't just say, I demand a country. Because if the people who live there don't want you to have that country, that's their democratic right. You also can't just buy a country. What I would say to Donald Trump is if you want Greenland, invade.
Yeah, well, there is that.
Yeah, but he's not going to do that, is he? He's just strong-arming us. He's not going to get Greenland, you know that.
Well,
he's not, Kev. He isn't. But it might be good if he did, because at least he could defend it properly.
I would hope he would.
Good point. Thanks for ringing, mate. Thank you for ringing, Kev. Very quickly, let's talk to Grace in Ealing. Hello, Grace. Sorry you had to wait so long. Now, are you there?
Hello?
Oh, my God, what's that noise in the background?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's all sorts of noise going on in the background. Never mind. I've got a note saying, I haven't got long, but Muslims, we can't support their every custom. I agree with you. Explain.
Well, I'll try and make this point. Bear with me, but sometimes people say this is a Christian country, as Ben Habib did, and it's kind of like in contrast. But Christianity is not only different from Islam; it's also predicated on the concept of a person's actions and a person themselves being somewhat different. That is to say that God loves us whilst not agreeing with all of our actions, and that's why Jesus died.